Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the July Good Morning Truckee. Appreciate you all being here. It's at least for me, running around this morning, so thanks for all of you that are here. We have a good presentation this morning on emergency and wildlife preparedness. We are welcoming 3 expert members of our community. James Blattler of the Emergency Services Coordinator with the town of Truckee, and Rarick with Tahoe Truckee COAD Manager with Connecting Point, and Eric Hornvet with Wildlife Prevention Manager with the Truckee Fire District. And we're also here from Alex Olar with Mountain Area Preservation as our nonprofit highlight. So thanks, excuse me, for being here this morning. And as always, the presenting sponsors. Oh, they're not up there, so I'm going to read them. Just going to dispose of that this morning. But here we go. Tahoe Forest Healthcare System and Kelly Brothers Painting. The latte sponsors are the Town of Truckee, Auerbach Engineering, East River PR, Porter Simon, Tahoe Truckee Media, Truckee Tahoe Unified School District, 101.5 FM, Truckee Tahoe Radio, Sierra Sun, and Moonshine Inc. Cappuccino sponsors are Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, JK Architecture and Engineering, Goldring Travel, Boreal Woodward Tahoe, the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe. The espresso sponsors are Dixon Realty, Lyft Truckee, Co-work Conference and Wellspace, Mountain Hardware and Sports, NV5, Peak Digital Studio, Mount Lincoln Construction, High West Law, and Elements at Coldstream, and then Mountain Brew. Thank you for the coffee this morning for all of you that drink it. The Good Morning Truckee Committee and the Chamber staff that puts this on is Jessica Penman, Ruth Gearsey, Melissa Williams, and Marissa Rudder, Kelly Cutler, Mayumi Peacock, Ernie Grossman, Gerald Herrick, Tony Lashbrook, Jim Porter, Deb Ryan, Ted Owens, and Jess Carr. And as always, thanks for the team at Tahoe Truckee Media for handling the AV, getting this recorded, putting on the sound. And now, without further ado, let's go around with introductions. How about we start here with you, Marissa?
Jessica Petman, President and CEO of the Truckee Chamber.
Susan Jack Bonzi, Love Year 5 Communication Consultant at work.
Jenny Kendrick with East River PR and
Alex Bihalski, Communications Specialist at Truckee Donner PUD.
Jan Zabriskie, Truckee Town Council, Nevada County Transportation Commission.
Hi, Barney Dewey, and I'm running for the Truckee.
What's the name
Donner? Yeah, the Truckee Donner Public Utility District.
All right.
Pamela Grant with Congressman Kevin Kiley's office.
Louise Zabriskie from the Truckee Library.
Phyllis McCon, Community Impact Officer from Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation.
Kathleen Egan, Friends of the Truckee Library.
Ernie Grossman, Truckee Local.
Jim Porter, friend of Ernie Grossman. He doesn't have many. So.
Lucky me, that's right.
Yeah.
Parisa from the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation.
Bob Ferwerda, retiree.
Todd Rivera, Tahoe Truckee Unified School District.
Let's go here to our speakers.
James Blattler, Town of Truckee Emergency Services Coordinator.
Alexis Aller, Mountain Area Preservation.
Ann Rarick, Tahoe Truckee Community Organizations Active in Disaster Manager.
Eric.
Good morning, Eric Hornvet, Wildfire Prevention Manager with Truckee Fire.
Good morning, Brad Chisholm, Fire Chief on the Valley Fire Department.
Morning, Danny Renfro, Truckee Police Chief.
Good morning, Leslie Williams, Associate Director of Sierra SBDC Small Business Development Center, right across the hall.
Grant Wiltshire, High West Law.
Eric Goldring, Goldring Travel.
Colleen Dalton, CEO, Visit Truckee Tahoe and Sustainable Truckee.
Jack Ellis, Tahoe Truckee Civil Air Patrol Squadron.
Jackie Calvert, Visit Truckee Tahoe and Sustainable Truckee.
Lindsay Romack, Truckee Town Council.
Dean Nicholson, East Fork Roofing.
Kelly Cutler, Truckee Cultural District and the Truckee Chamber. Shanna Decker, the Speedy Foundation.
Chris Tennant, Mount Lincoln Construction and Concord.
James Gobbin, local resident.
Alpha Carlson, Truckee Library.
Great, thanks. I am Raven Whittington, the, what am I now, Jessica? The chair of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And a friend of Jim Porter's, he doesn't have many. And that is true. All right, without me going on about myself, as Jim would do, let's do the Town of Truckee. James Blattler, Emergency Services Coordinator. James, welcome. Good morning.
I got my timer here as well because I told Marissa if I don't have it going, I'm keep you here all morning. Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be here today. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm new to the town of Truckee relatively. I moved here in February, started here at the town. Not new to emergency management and emergency services, and I'm not new to the area as a visitor. I've always loved the town of Truckee, been visiting pretty much my whole life. So very excited to be here today. So today I wanted to talk about a couple things, really what we do in the Office of Emergency Services, but also what you can do to be ready for major emergencies and disasters. There's a lot of really important things in terms of business continuity, and I thought this would be a great captive audience to drive home that message, so we'll be covering that at the end. But I'll tell you what, when I tell people that I'm in emergency management, the number of confused faces of what is that is pretty universal. So very thankful for the opportunity to kind of explain it to this group this morning. First and foremost, a lot of what I do really fits in with the council's strategic priorities. And I can get up here and make an argument really that almost every one of these priorities is impacted by what emergency services and emergency management can do. But our primary mission really focuses on that, enhancing partnerships and investments for emergency preparedness. And that's a lot of what we do. How do we do it? We use what's called the emergency management life cycle, really the phases of emergency management. And so we've got mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And so I'm going to break down kind of what we do within each of those. But keep in mind that just because it's a life cycle doesn't mean that you're just focusing on one thing. In my prior life before coming here, I did have a very busy week where I had a lot of work in each of these different items going on at the same time, essentially. So mitigation. Mitigation is really all about helping make sure whatever coming disaster or emergency impacts us less. Hopefully a lot less, but sometimes even marginally less can make all the difference. And so one of our primary plans, our primary tools to accomplish that is what's called a hazard mitigation plan. So this is a required plan by FEMA if you want those precious grant dollars from the federal government for mitigation. And so we're in the process of updating that right now. And we're doing that with Nevada County and a few other partners within the county. And so you'll likely see some information coming out from the town pretty soon for an opportunity to give feedback and input on that plan. And typically that's done every 5 years. And you do have to have that updated every 5 years to remain eligible for that grant funding. So what that does is really it analyzes and identifies a lot of the hazards we face here in the town of Truckee and different methods that we can employ to mitigate those hazards. A lot of those are, we got a little bit of a typo there, the good old PDF switch over. Not grants capital, but we have grants, which is a very useful tool of conducting a lot of mitigation work. It can be very costly, but as you can see there on that slide right there, that even though it's costly, it can pay off in dividends. So according to believe it is the National Institute of Building Sciences, every $1 spent on mitigation results in $6 of future disaster loss savings. So you think about that's a huge return on investment. Now, a lot of those numbers are pulled from actual presidentially declared disasters, and FEMA is very strict on cost-benefit analysis, but when they do give those grant dollars out for mitigation, they take a hard look at it, and it pays off substantially. So if you move that capital down, it's capital improvement projects. And so we have a really useful one right there, down there at the Trout Creek restoration. So not only are you restoring the wildlife there, but you're also helping prevent potential impacts of flood or mitigate impacts of flood in that area. And so it's really important to invest in these projects over time to help make sure that those future huge rain events, rain on snow events aren't as impactful for our community. And finally, I did want to highlight a very important one locally, which is roadside vegetation management. I'm sure that Eric might be talking a little bit about that today. But the importance of reducing that vegetation, or what we call fuel for fire, along the roadside, which is very important for a couple reasons. It could help prevent a fire from sparking along the roadside. And it's also really important that when you're evacuating people out from a wildfire, that you have less vegetation to burn along the roadside, which can make that travel a lot easier. So moving away from mitigation, going into preparedness. Now, this is the lion's share of what we do here in emergency services. And the one thing I really want to drive here is relationships are everything. When it comes to disasters, being able to pick up that phone and call somebody who's going to answer the phone because you've made those relationships ahead of time is really essential, because you're going to get the information you need. You're going to get the resources you need a lot faster. And so a lot of preparedness is developing those relationships, fostering those partnerships. But you'll likely see a lot of what we present out as Ready Truckee, which our fantastic communications manager, Braun, has been helping put together. And that's basically making sure that we've got a prepared community as well. A lot of Ready Truckee focuses around signing up for emergency alerts, making sure people know their evacuation zones, having disaster kits. But this is part of Ready Truckee as well, me being able to get that message out to the community. We have some pictures there of Chief Renfro talking to the Golden Meet and Greet group. Just a little flyer up there we recently did for Forest Futures. And it's a big part of what we do. Now, training is also a really important part of what we do. And that's a great picture right there of our most recent Emergency Operations Center exercise that we did, really central to wildfire evacuations. We're going to be doing an after-action report that's presented to Council at the second meeting in August to kind of go into the details on what we learned from that. And then also preparedness really focuses around our capabilities and making sure that we're ready to go. And so a lot of that's around planning. I spend a lot of time planning. So that quote at the top of that slide stings a little bit when you say plans are worthless, because I spend a lot of time doing it, but it's so true. And it's really the process of planning that gets the value out of it. You're bringing daylight to some blind spots that you had, and if you're doing it properly, creating awareness over issues that need to be solved ahead of time during that planning process. And that Emergency Operations Center, which is actually located right down the hall there, we want to make sure that it has the capabilities needed to be able to run and support the incident. Now, luckily here at the town of Truckee, the council has invested in some really great tools to help us plan, especially around evacuation. We've seen far too many disasters that have been really tragic in recent years around evacuation, and we want to make sure that we at the town of Truckee are doing everything we can to help ensure that when the day comes that we've got a wildfire, that we can get people out quickly and safely. And so some of the great tools we have are evacuation softwares. So we use a product that was developed by a couple really, really smart people that are actually local to Nevada County. And it uses artificial intelligence to be able to analyze how quickly we can get people out. So we can input data and like the number of cars, road closures, safety points, evacuation sequences, basically how long it's going to take for everybody to actually be on the road. Also roadway speeds. And so we can enter that information here and it spits out a time. And as you can see, this I put in for the entire town of Truckee to be able to get people out. Don't hold on to that number because there's a lot of factors that can influence that number. So one of the largest factors is how long we actually give people to evacuate. And so just for a good context, I inputted those numbers for Tahoe Donner. And if you gave everybody in Tahoe Donner 2 hours to get out the door and it takes 2 hours for people to leave, that evacuation can take, 3.5 hours. Now, if you compact that 2 hours into 30 minutes, then you're really congesting the roads in a short amount of time, and that can take over 5 hours. So it's really important for us to know this, and it's a really essential tool because even last week, when the Royal fire started on the other side of the hill, we are immediately coordinating with our partners in Placer County, CAL FIRE, Nevada County, and letting them know, hey, these are our decision points on how much time we need to get people out of town if the fire looks like it's heading our way. So very valuable tool. I have fire modeling out there. It's getting better and better. They're still trying to crack that nut of structure to structure spread. It's pretty easy to analyze how readily vegetation burns based on how dry the fuels are, the weather, and all that, but pretty tough to analyze when you've got structures that are so different based on construction, maybe like fuel loading around that house. So I don't know if Eric might touch on that a little bit, but the technology is getting better and better every day, but still not quite there for the structure to structure spread, but a very valuable tool nonetheless on figuring out how much time we need to get people out if a fire starts at a particular spot. I'm going to keep moving along so that way I have enough time for the rest of this stuff. But now moving on to response. Really, this is something that all our time in preparation makes sure that we're ready to do on a moment's notice. So we've got a picture right there of the 80 fire back in 2007, which coincidentally burned about 80 acres right off Highway 80 towards Tahoe Donner. Another picture, it's not just wildfire here in the Office of Emergency Services. We've got recently retired Robert Womack right there talking to ABC World News Tonight during the recent blizzard. And we've also got a picture up there of the recent Royal Fire briefing where I was going every day to make sure that we are coordinating with our partners in Placer County, just keeping a close eye on that incident. And so when we activate our services, one of our key focuses is alert and warning and making sure that we get information, the right information to the right people at the right time so they can make the right decisions. And we've got a number of tools to do that, including our Code Red service, wireless emergency alerts. And so we actively employ that when needed. And a lot of what we do in response is coordinating with our partners. Wanted to kind of put some context to our Emergency Operations Center, our EOC, and what we do. So we are not managing the incident. When we activate the EOC, we're supporting the incident. And so we're not out there making decisions on how to put water on that fire. We want to make sure the people that are putting water on that fire and that are evacuating people have the resources they need to get the job done. So that can be as non-glamorous as porta potties or food, or it could be really any of those like unique things that they just can't get a hold of. I wanted to make sure everybody kind of knew how we operate too. In the world of California Emergency Services and even the national government, all incidents start and end local. So when we have something go off, we try to solve that problem ourselves, get the resources, everything we need ourselves. When we can't do it, we knock on the door of Nevada County. And Nevada County tries to find whatever we're looking for locally in the county. If they can't do that, then they look out to the region. If the region can't do that, they look out to the state. If the state can't do that, then they go to the federal government. And that's where things really escalate to the point of the president coming in and declaring a national or a major disaster declaration. So moving on to recovery, a little bit of an overwhelming slide here with the number of agencies here, but really what I wanted to drive home with recovery is that it's a whole community effort, both local, regional, state, and national. Apologies, I know that you probably recognize some of these logos here. I hope it's all right that I took some of your agency's logo here, but wanted to make sure that there are resources available locally that can help us recover. And whenever we have a major disaster that impacts the town of Truckee, it's everybody coming together. And you'll see things like, especially if it's large enough, those disaster recovery centers, which are run by FEMA. You need the president to declare a disaster to get those. If you don't get that, then what you see is local assistance centers. And so that's really locally run, whether it's by us or the county or the state. And what those are fantastic resources where all these different agencies can come together under one roof to provide services to our community members to help them recover. definitely wanted to focus on, and I know I'm coming up on time here. I know you're watching that. Wanted to focus really on business resiliency and what's available to business owners. And so the SBA, for sure, a great resource. But I want people to know that you really want to plan for yourself and not rely on those resources for recovery. So I have a picture here of a couple different things. Wildfire definitely present here in the town of Truckee. But there is a picture of a tornado. Not there because I think that we're going to get hit by an F5 tornado and have that big of a disaster. But if you run a business, it's important for you to understand that even a tornado in the Midwest can impact your business, and you should have a plan for that type of resiliency. Maybe it's disrupting supply chains that you need to plan for. And so it's important to have that there. But keep in mind of local conditions. And one thing I wanted to highlight before I wrap things up is we face a more likely potential for a long-term utility outage, power outage because of wildfire. So MV Energy is employing new policies that if a fire is threatening their lines, they will turn off the power immediately. And so we really want to stress that resiliency for secondary power for businesses, having a plan for how you can sustain yourself. If you've got generators, how are you going to get fuel to power those generators to keep your business going? Have some scary stats here, and I know I'm over, but I don't like presenting a problem without a solution, and these slides will be available to you. But it's important to realize that when a major disaster does impact a community, businesses are lost, and a way to overcome that is continuity planning. So making sure that you're taking a look at what hazards you have out there, how to develop contingency plans around that. A lot of it's around staffing and making sure that you have people that can make decisions in the absence of supervisors or owners, and making sure that you're testing those plans. And I apologize for eating up way more time because I wanted to focus a lot on this, but I did want to make sure that up there, those are some fantastic resources, ready.gov/business and sba.gov/prepare. And they have really incredible resources to create business continuity plans to make sure that your business can sustain the impact of a disaster and recover a lot faster, because we know that we can't be resilient as a community without our business community. And so it's really important that everybody can stand up as quickly as possible and help us be resilient as a community together. So with that, I think there'll be questions at the end probably, since I ate up a couple more minutes of my time, but
Yeah, we'll have the questions.
cool. Thank you very much.
Actually, I have one question because I'm the MC. I'll ask it. We all work in Truckee, that maybe live in Truckee, Nevada County, Placer County. Where do you go? What should you have on your phone to get the alerts? Which is the one that you should go to?
Yeah, so fortunately, there's a great new resource. It's called TahoeAlerts.com. And because the platforms to issue emergency notifications can change by jurisdiction, fortunately, Town of Truckee, Nevada County, we use the same one, but Placer County, they use something different. So go to TahoeAlerts.com and you can type in your address. It'll tell you exactly what notification platform to sign up for. It's also really important to realize that we relatively recently changed from Nixle to Code Red. So if you signed up for Nixle, that didn't transfer over. So it's a good idea to go in and check to make sure you're signed up with the Code Red system. It's one of our best tools at reaching people during an emergency. And we can issue wireless emergency alerts, which are those Amber Alert things, but we only do that in life and death situations. And so if there's an emergency that could turn into a life and death situation, that's when we're going to be using the Code Red Code Red platform.
So go to Tahoe Alerts and Code Red.
So TahoeAlerts.com, if you go there, it'll send you to all the information you need to sign up for Code Red. So you could go to our town website, townoftruckee.gov/alerts, that has the information specifically to Code Red. But that TahoeAlerts.com is really a fantastic resource.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, thank you for the presentation. All right, up next we have Ann Rarick with Connecting Point and the Tahoe Truckee COAD Manager. Ann, come on up. Welcome. Thanks.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name's Ann Rarick, and I am the Tahoe Truckee COAD manager. COAD stands for Community Organizations Active in Disaster. I think James did a fantastic job explaining, how the town approaches disasters, and we are kind of another slice, another piece of the pie, enhancing town services. So what does a COAD do? COADs, it's a national model. There are COADs all throughout the state of California, and we work a lot with our partners in Marin County, Sonoma County, Napa County, to make sure that we're doing the best practices. So we play a role during all phases of a disaster, including mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. This could be any type of scenario: wildfires, storms, floods, extreme heat, cold events. And we really work to strengthen area-wide disaster coordination with information sharing, joint planning, and training. It includes public and private nonprofit agencies. And you can kind of think of this as the non-governmental response to disasters. And we do, again, emphasize that whole community approach, just like the town of Truckee, and especially those with access and functional needs, people who may need a little bit longer to evacuate, non-English speakers. We really focus on those kind of populations. So our mission here is to develop and enhance partnerships to create a resilient Tahoe Truckee that's prepared to respond and recover from disasters. We do this through communication, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration with a variety of stakeholders, including nonprofits, faith-based organizations, government agencies, and the private sector. So we started as a 2-year pilot program in 2022. Huge support from the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation to kind of get this program off the ground. And we do have an advisory team with these members: Nevada County, Town of Truckee, Placer County, Sierra Community House. After those 2 years, we saw the need for the program to continue. So we are fortunate enough that we're moving into year 3 in September, and ready to take on the fire season and winter storms. So a little bit of examples to see, like, how does the COAD play a role? Where do we come in during a disaster? Again, we're not managing the incident. We do have a seat at the Emergency Operations Center here at the town, and can kind of enhance those town services or county services during a response. So we were activated during the Royal Fire. And some activities we did, we are working pretty closely with Placer County Health and Human Services to make sure that we have, a plan for sheltering had folks needed to evacuate. What does that look like? Where's the shelter going to be? Who's going to staff it? And we were having all of those conversations. And then connecting local organizations. There was a camp up near the Royal Fire that was having questions of whether or not they needed to evacuate, should they go back to camp. Made sure that they got connected directly in with Placer County and Incident Command so they could make the best decision for their program. And then we also monitor 211 for calls and can relay that information back to the county, back to county OES to say, hey, we're seeing this need on the ground, how do we fill it? And also regular updates with our partner agencies. I know there's a lot of you all in the room. Incidents like these, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions. How can we help? What can we do? And we were having regular COAD partner calls to make sure that our agencies had situational awareness, knew what was going on, and knew where to report needs if those come up. Another example of one of our activations was during the 2022-2023 winter storms. Photo there with one of the Truckee CERT members. So we were able to stand up kind of a sandbag assistance program. So, town provides the materials for sandbags, and then we were able to staff that with folks who might need help loading up their sandbags. We had coffee. We had just people out there talking, alleviating some of that anxiety that can come with some of these incidents. We're also working with Placer County during the avalanche that occurred in Olympic Valley, getting folks that were affected from that event to Red Cross services and sheltering. Also provided support for the Emergency Warming Center, 211, also I'll talk a little bit about 211 in a second, but we were also monitoring calls and making sure that our resource page was up to date on the 211 website. And a lot of work we've been doing in recovery. So Connecting Point also runs a disaster case management program, and this incident was actually declared presidentially by FEMA as FEMA declared disaster. So when that happens, we can get contracts to staff case managers. So we are currently working with families that were affected from these storms, and our case managers are currently working with them now. So other activities, right as in our inception, there was a water main burst in Loyalton up in Sierra County. So we were able to provide some mutual aid for them, got grocery outlet to donate some water since they were on a boil water notice. And like James said, a lot of our work this summer has been with preparedness, getting preparedness information out to our vulnerable communities, a big emphasis on helping people sign up for emergency alerts. So we've been at food distribution at Sierra Community House. We've been at Truckee Thursdays. We've been at Truckee Day, just going around and talking about how to sign up for those alerts, depending on what jurisdiction people are in, and really explaining, maybe you live in Placer County, but you work in Truckee, so let's have you sign up for both and explain the two different systems. So that's been a really successful initiative this summer. And we just chatted about Tahoe Alert, so that's a little slide there. You might not be able to scan the QR code from there, but a great initiative. We're really getting this out into the community. Folks can scan that real time on their phones, and then it will take them to the correct place to sign up. But again, we're encouraging folks to sign up for multiple channels, especially those that are right on jurisdictional boundaries. And then just wanted to touch a little bit on 211. So the 211 is another program of Connecting Point. We're a community call center for local resources, information, and referrals. We operate 24/7, 365. There's multiple language access, but we always have a bilingual English-Spanish staff available to take calls. So you can call, you can text. But in the context of this discussion, we work really closely with our government partners and can activate during a local disaster. So we can staff up, we bring other staff members in, so we have extra call agents. In the event of a response, we'll know where all the shelters are, how people can report unmet needs, what resources are available to folks. So really pushing 211 out into the community as the non-emergency disaster line. Also really helpful for families that might live out of the area that are concerned on the incident. They can call 211 to just get some information. We can't always share if someone's in a shelter or something like that, but just to alleviate some of that, again, anxiety that comes up and explain what's going on the ground. We can also help people sign up for emergency alerts. So if you're having trouble and you don't know where to go, you can call 211 and they can look up your number and sign you up. Also big in our recovery resources. So as we're working through winter storm recovery, those who need to get access to our resources can go through 211 to do the initial intake. So this is how to connect to 211. Dial 211. You can also text us. And then if there is an incident, we will have that incident page on our website. So if people don't necessarily want to call, but let's say want to look up all the resources, if it's a big enough incident, we'll have separate pages per incident. And then I know we have a lot of agencies in the room, so if people want to connect with the COAD, we have fairly regular meetings, really working on providing those trainings, kind of like James was talking about, that business continuity. How do we help our organizations that provide services on the ground continue being able to provide those services? So some preparedness trainings for organizations and being able to support them during events. So that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, Ann or Eric with the Tahoe Truckee Co-Ad Manager and Connecting Point. Up next, we have Eric Hornvet of the Truckee Fire District Wildfire Prevention Manager. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yours formatted weird, so everyone's formatted. Give me a minute. Sorry, guys. It's thinking. Yours just formatted weird, so I have.
That happens when you convert it to PDF.
I know, yours was like hard to follow.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Should have done it for everybody, but there you go.
Sweet. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Eric Hornvet, the Wildfire Prevention Manager with Truckee Fire, or Mr. T, as they call me in the office, as everything with Measure T flows through me. So, you just heard from James from Office of Emergency Management and Ann from the COAD. I'm really going to zoom in on fire, right? I'm going to talk to the slice of the pie that I'm passionate about and that we're really trying to motivate the community. And as far as this emergency management pyramid goes, or diamond, I'm really going to focus on mitigation and maybe a touch on preparedness, but I'm really going to be hammering on mitigation. Many of you that have heard me talk, I'm like a foot on the gas pedal, get stuff done, go, 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 do more type of a guy. So hopefully this gives you some good info and motivates you to take action at your home today and talk with your community, talk with your HOA, talk with your Firewise groups, and really rally to be wildfire resilient. So my background is I'm a nerd. I went forest management, rangeland management, minored in ecology and eco-hydrology. I really wanted to work out in the woods, and I caught the fire bug. So I did wildland firefighting for a number of years early on in my career. Truckee Hot Shots was the last place I left with the Forest Service, and then I've been working in wildfire resilience now. This will be fire season number 7. Started over at North Tahoe Fire, and I'm now really fortunate to be here working in the Truckee community. We have a really small but mighty team. So there's really just 4 of us that are full-time. That's myself, our forester, Dylan. Super, super cool that Truckee has a full-time registered professional forester. There's only like 1,000 registered foresters in the whole state of California, and we have one right here, born and raised, super passionate to work with the community. So we're really fortunate to have this resource. And then Maria and Brittany are our rock star wildfire prevention support staff. And then we hire a team of defensible space inspectors every year. And all of our main mitigation on the ground gets done through residents, through homeowners, through Firewise, and through contractors out in the woods. Cool. You guys all know what Measure T is, so I'm not going to go big into it, right? But that was a tax that was passed here in Truckee in 2021. It's $179 per parcel per year for the next 8 years. Gives us about $3.7 million to focus in on this wildfire issue with. I'm going to start with the message, wildfire season is here. I think we all saw it right away with the Royal Fire. There was also a fire over off Pretoria, Sahara Drive over in Agate Bay in Tahoe. We had a fire over this weekend. Looked like it was related to homeless. So fire season's here. It's getting hot, it's getting dry. We are pushing right into our criteria low minimum fuel moistures. Things are curing out and becoming ready to burn. This one picture, if you write this down, this is a super cool nonprofit called Watch Duty. Who has the Watch Duty app on their phone? Okay, look next to you for someone that doesn't have it and tell them at this end of the meeting to download it. This is like the best resource from a nonprofit that pulls together all of the incident information data and links you direct to current evacuation information. It is a really good one-stop shop. It's not the official notice from anybody, but if you don't have this app, you're doing something wrong living where we live. So find that person next to you that didn't have it, download that app, it's great. Fire is part of our ecosystem. How many of us know this? Right? Everyone in the room. So what we're learning is that we suppressed fires for 150 years. We put in policies to make it hard to manage our lands and our forests, and we're at a state that they are critically dense, critically overgrown. We remove fire, we remove that ecologically restorative tool from the forest, and we're in a dire need to get back to being able to confidently reintroduce prescribed fire into our landscape, and we have a long ways to go to get there. Everywhere in Truckee, right? You got to get the first treatments done, maybe a next treatment, and finally get the forest back into an area we can get fire back in. But it's important to know that there is a strategic plan for the state of California on trying to get this use of beneficial fire back onto the landscape. It's the best tool we can use to, get to the point of managing our lands. Our natural forest really looks something like this. If you've heard me talk, maybe you've heard this quote before, but when John Muir first came to the Sierra Nevada forest, he documented a linear sight distance of about a half mile or more through our forests. He stated that you could gallop a team of 6 to 10 mules and horses, and there wasn't a branch that would hit your hat or a shrub that would hit your stirrup. The joke I make is if you go to the woods behind your houses in a lot of areas now and you throw the tennis ball for your dog, two things are going to happen. One, it's going to bounce back. Or two, your dog's going to look up at you like, what are you doing? I can't go get that. So we're in a dire need to manage our forest, change our lens of what our forest really should look like, what resilience, healthy forests, healthy communities are. And the picture that you're seeing on the screen is the reality. It's a lot fewer trees per acre. It is a well-managed understory in an area where I think you could all see that fire would be very, very low severity if we had one in this area. And the trees would probably just laugh at the small fire on the ground and cruise on for forever. The other factor we're dealing with is people move to the wildland-urban interface. So this is an aerial shot of Tahoe Donner. So this is 6,100 homes uphill, and not just uphill from Truckee, but we're talking like situated almost at the top of the Yuba River, the Truckee River, the American River. We have multiple river confluences. We're really at the top of all of these here in Truckee. And we put our communities and our homes in this wildland-urban interface. We actually call it an intermix, because to make things even more complicated, we chose to drop our houses out of the sky into the woods. So we have all of that intermixed forest fuels mixing in with our homes and our community. That's just another complexity to manage during wildfire. We already talked about this, but firefighting, it's needed. We're not going to stop. You need 100% full suppression response on most of these fires to protect our communities, our forests, lives, and property. But firefighting did a really good job at reducing fires. I mean, we did about 50 years of being able to put 90 to 99% of fires out before they grew past 10 acres, most of those being 1 acre or less. And we've seen the top 7 largest, most destructive, and most catastrophic wildfires in the last decade, most of those being 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 2021. We really got a break for 2 years, right? Last 2022 and 2023, we got a break. And now we're looking like we're going right back into what feels like that normal catastrophic level of a fire season. This is what that looks like when you don't manage the forest and you suppress every fire. You get 150 years of fuel buildup. How many people have seen forests that look like this in Truckee near their community? So this is what we have, right? Far, far different from the natural forest is what was, prior to European settlement. So our forests have changed a lot, and our management needs to change a lot, and our momentum to understand the change and to support the work and to take action that you can on the areas you have control over matters. This doesn't make it any better, right? We're dealing with climate change. Look at it now. We had a just above average winter that turned into a very average snow melt out period. Now we're sitting in a point of time that, forget about yesterday's very minimal thunderstorm and rain event. We have 0% of annual spring and summer precipitation. So we're not at like we've had average spring and summer rainstorms come in, 0% average. And if you look at the next outlook through the end of July, it's not looking lovely. We're going to be sitting in high 80s, creeping into the 90s for the next foreseeable 10 to 14 days unless something else changes. So we're in that spot. Things are hot. Things are dry. We didn't get any moisture this spring or summer. And as we continue to have these hot and dry weathers, things are going to continue to dry out and, as we call it, be cured or ready to burn. So just be mindful of that. When all these things align, that's how you end up with pictures like this, right? That's that extreme fire behavior. That's that 0.1 or 1% event, but it's what we're trying to avoid. That's why we're trying to mitigate. Biggest issue we're trying to solve in the communities for defensible space, if you've heard us talk about it, is the ember cast. This is pretty real. Think of a snowstorm, but it's hot embers. This is what it would look like in front of a fire if you had a fire burning at that high intensity level near your neighborhood. Just to point it out, these 2 large fires you're seeing on the bottom, Caldor and Dixie Fire, these were really big ones for us in the fire world. These were fires that marched from the western slopes over the Sierra Crest. And if you look at the distribution, one's in South Lake, one's just north of us, right, Frenchman's Reservoir. We're kind of this cream in the middle of the 2 black Oreos that didn't get hit. But that means that we've seen that this could happen. So we need to prepare for that. So this summarizes all of it, right? Things have changed. We've had 20 years of devastating fire seasons, lack of natural fires, building up of fuels. People have moved to the wildland-urban interface, climate change, overgrowth, more residents and visitors, increasing wildfire intensity, multiple recent nearby small and large fires, and we want to avoid heading towards a disaster here in Truckee. So what can we do? I mean, these are the 3 most simple things we can do that every resident and every visitor should be able to do. Create defensible space, starting with that critical first 5 feet around your structure. We call that the ember resistant or the non-combustible zone. Just totally buff it out. Don't have anything there that could combust. Harden your home from embers and be prepared. Have those emergency alerts, have an evacuation plan, and be ready to evacuate if needed. So this coupled approach is what we're really looking at. Defensible space, all 3 zones, 100 feet from the house, and then double checking if your house was built prior to 2007, it wasn't built to the new updated standards. So check your vents. We don't want wooden fences attached to the houses. Outbuildings should be located away from your structure. Be mindful of combustible patio furniture. Just think what you can do to just button that ship up your home. All right, this is one I really have to touch on. It's fire triangles, right? So the 3 things you need to create fire are fuel. You need something that can burn. You need an ignition source. You need heat, and you need oxygen. I feel like fuel is the easiest one to manage here, right? You don't know when something's going to ignite, and we're not going to control the oxygen in the atmosphere. Fire behavior triangle, the one on the right, these are the 3 basic factors that drive fire intensity and severity. And those, again, are fuel. How much fuel vegetation is available to burn? What is the weather? Is it hot, dry, windy, and red flag conditions? And what's the topography, right? We all know fire preheats and increases severity as it burns upslope, up canyon, and when it's funneled. Again, weather, possible to control. Topography, you kind of are where you are. Your house is built where it is. You're living in Truckee. We can't control the topography. Fuel, again, is another factor we can control. So you'll hear it again and again and again, is that I really preach towards let's mitigate the hazard, which is eliminating fuel, breaking up that pathway from vegetation to our homes and that overly dense structure of the forest to bring it back to those more natural conditions. So how do homes ignite? Really important to know, it's direct flame contact, embers, and radiant heat. We're going to end up with embers. If there's a fire nearby, embers are going to come towards your property. That's why we need that critical zone 0 hardscaped around your house. Direct flame contact and radiant heat you can manage by eliminating fuel. Of course, your neighbor's home could be really close or some of these other factors, but if you manage defensible space and you remove those shrubs, those lower limbs, separate your trees, you're making it so that you're unlikely to have a fire pathway of direct flame contact to your house or have the vegetation that may burn be far enough away that that radiant heat is not significant enough to impact your home. So just want to point it out that the most important thing we can do is start with zone 0, that ember resistant zone. Ember ignitions, this is post-fire damage inspections in the state of California, are responsible for up to 90% of the homes lost. So it really is, what can an ember ignite next to your home that can then create a pathway to your home? Or can an ember directly enter your home and ignite what's inside? So the first 0 to 5 feet around the home has the greatest impact on reducing the risk of losing structures to wildfire, and it's now the #1 mitigation that the entire insurance industry is requiring. So focus on zone 0 first and move out from there. This is a great resource. If you haven't seen this video, check it out. This is on readyforwildfire.org. This is a live burn demonstration they did down in Auburn just this summer. So they're showing 2 structures built the same way. So it's built to current standard building codes, combustible siding, multi-pane windows, asphalt roof. One of them has some planted vegetation, combustible mulch, and a wood fence. The other one has about 5 feet of gravel, plant spaced out of that, and a metal section of fence. They apply drip torch fuel, so gasoline and diesel on fire, into that area to simulate what embers would do. And the structure on the left goes up in flames almost immediately. You see it creep through the combustible mulch right next to the structure, into the plants, up the fence, up into the eaves, total loss. Structure on the right, no big deal. It laughs at it. Even with the structure burning in close proximity, it's fine. It doesn't absorb that radiant heat. So cool video to watch. All right, so now I'm here to talk to you about stuff we have going on with Measure T, and that's a lot of stuff. So one is we're working on a defensible space ordinance update. Right now, our current defensible space ordinance is from 2012. It's a little old. We want to update it to the best practices and make sure we have a really, really good regulatory framework in place so that our community knows what to do to create defensible space and when it's required. That's in preliminary draft right now, but we're going to be working with our town, our counties, and getting that out to the public here this summer for review before it goes to any board meetings for review. Our defensible space program is doing a lot. I forgot to update this slide. We're up to 12,000 inspections now. We did 4,500 inspections last year, and we've already done almost 2,000 this year. So we're on a 3-year defensible space inspection cycle. This map shows you the areas that we're going to be inspecting over the years. So this year we did Glenshire, we worked through the Alder Hill area, and now we're actually up on the summit. So a lot of areas to inspect and get this education out there. We have a $500 home hardening rebate available for property owners. So if you're doing that home hardening stuff, get your $500. We have a plethora of green waste disposal resources here, especially if you're a town of Truckee resident. Take advantage of these. We're super fortunate to have curbside pickup, 6-yard dumpsters, yard waste carts, self-haul, drop-off events. Like, there's so much availability to help you get this fuel off of your property. So great program there. We also started a new program with SWEP in the school district, and that's actually educating K through 12 about forest management, forest health, defensible space, and getting these students involved with helping homeowners that need assistance with getting the work done. So really good program where you can educate kids and show them what hard work goes into creating defensible space. We've been working a lot on the professional side, so we train our contractors every year to produce that tree service list. We've worked and trained with our real estate professionals on enforcing defensible space for property sale transactions, and we're currently working with Cat and others on trying to get a home hardening contractors list in place for the community. I'm super stoked on this. This is actually going to our board tonight, but this is our 3rd year of wildfire prevention grants. This is us allowing Measure T to go back to the community through a local grant. We're going to have about $600,000 going out to 2 applicants this year to get about 300 acres of fuel reduction done. So really good way to build capacities and help the community do more than we could do alone. Another really exciting one is our forester partnered up with Tahoe Donner, Martis Camp, Vale, National Forest Foundation, SPI, North Tahoe Fire, Truckee Donner Land Trust, and some others. And we pulled down a $7 million CAL FIRE Forest Health Grant and $1 million in match. So we're going to be getting 2,600 acres treated with this, and it's just leveraging that capacity we had with Measure T to gain these partners to then go grab funding and get more done. Who's checked out our CWPP? All right, this is one of those plans, right? You got to plan everything, but check it out, truckeefire.org/CWPP. We put a lot of effort into this. It's a leading edge community wildfire protection plan, and we call this our wildfire mitigation map or the money map. Where do we need to put the money in the community to get our forests and our communities back to the most resilient state? Upcoming projects, we got 3 projects getting ready to hit the ground here in August. These are all going to get awarded at a board meeting tonight. But we have a Martis Peak roadside fuel break project, Sierra Meadows community fuel reduction, and a hand thin project up above Armstrong Tract. So 3 really high priority areas, just over 250 acres of fuel reduction that's going to be going in with Measure T. The other thing that we're doing to think ahead is while we're implementing about 500 to 1,000 acres a year with Measure T and through partners, we're also ramping up our capacities to plan and move towards more commercial projects, which commercial and forestry means that you're actually extracting the biomass out of the woods, not chipping it, leaving it, burning it, but actually getting this material, typically small diameter logs, to a mill if feasible, or chipping, grinding, and hauling to a bioenergy facility like we have. The closest one right now is in Susanville. There'll be one coming up in North Star, but just lets you know is that we're going to be working with a consulting forester, and we're planning on 3 very large projects that will likely start hitting the ground over the next couple of years. We're looking at a 1,000-acre project that we're going to be calling the Glenshire to Hirschdale Timber Harvest Plan. So that's going to include a lot of different community fuel reduction and that kind of steep uphill or downhill Glenshire drive down to Hirschdale. So really thinking about that evacuation route. We're going to be partnered up with the hospital, Coyote Moon, Sierra College, and some other areas. We want to put in about a 300-acre treatment that would effectively connect Northwoods under Coyote Moon over to Jack Pine Road, or kind of the cement plant, if you know where that is. And then we're also looking at a Jackass Point to Deerfield timber harvest plan project too. If you've heard of the Cabin Creek project going on Highway 89 near the Jackass Trail system, this would take care of the land trust, private property, and Union Pacific Railroad easement so that that treatment gets connected into Coldstream and the Deerfield Shopping Center. So kind of a critical zone that needs to get tied in to make sure that these projects are all coming together holistically. This is the idea of large land fuel reduction. Before, super dense. During, we got some impacts with equipment and those things in there for the right reasons. And after, you get this really well-manicured park-like open forest that's getting back to those ideal forest stand conditions. Coming soon, we're going to be buffing out an entire dashboard and information hub. So we're going to be doing truckeefire.org/wildfire prevention will become a one-stop shop. It'll have a simple icon for every program we have available, so you can click on it and find the info, access the program, as well as kind of a public-facing dashboard rolling up all the numbers, all the good work that's getting done in the community. So with that, thank you, Truckee. I really did want to say, the amount of wildfire-minded work being carried out by our agencies, organizations, partners, Firewise groups, landowners, communities, and residents is really, really commendable. We've seen this change, right? There used to be a total visceral reaction to needing to manage vegetation. It was like, no, that's how it's supposed to look. It's always been dense. I need my aesthetics. And now we're seeing people adopt the information that's coming from wildfire losses and damages and the facts and going, you're right, we do need to manage this vegetation. We do need to take actions to have healthy forests, healthy communities, and be well prepared. So thanks a lot. If you want the whole report of everything that Measure T did last year, go to truckeefire.org/wildfire prevention. We produce an annual accomplishments report every year. And if you haven't checked it out, check out our CWPP. You can flow through it in about 20 to 30 minutes in this nice online story map that walks you through our community wildfire protection plan. So thank you. Thanks for letting me go long.
Thank you, Eric. We appreciate it and all the hard work you guys do. All right, up next, we're going to hear from Alexis Alar with the Mountain Area Preservation. Welcome, and this is our nonprofit speaker for this morning. And then after that, we will take some questions for everybody before we go to the...
Okay, well, good morning. I do not have a slide deck, so you're going to have to listen to me and pay attention. But the good news is that I have fun stuff to talk about. It's environmental advocacy, right, Porter? So my name is Alexis Aller. I'm the Executive Director of Mountain Area Preservation. I've had the good fortune of being with the organization for 13 years. We, like I said, environmental advocacy, not always the fun stuff, but the important stuff. We do a lot of land use review on a number of the community plans that many of us have either been a part of, or the community that you live in, or the neighborhood that you live in. MAP has been doing land use advocacy and open space conservation work for 37 years. We'll be turning 37 in August. So a huge part of our work is that land use review, right? Looking at community plans, looking at development proposals, and really understanding what does this mean. And I think it's really critical to connect our speakers with emergency preparedness and with COAD and Eric with Truckee Fire. So much of all of the planning, the preparedness, the mitigation, all of the proposals that you've heard about this morning, so much of our advocacy also tunes into that work. We look at community plans and we bring the community into the process to understand what is the built environment going to look like? What does it mean to plan for evacuation and preparedness? And what does your plan look like, right? So much of our advocacy for 37 years has been not only rolling up our sleeves to bring people to the room to understand what development will look like, but also be a part of the sometimes multi-decade planning process that development goes through to understand, is this development appropriate, and do we have the right mitigation in place to allow this type of growth? I think that's really kind of on the forefront of so many people's minds, especially when we get to summer season. We are in the throes of dealing with peak tourism while also trying to live our lives. And so how we move around our community, how we get from, say, North Lake back to Truckee, depending on where you live, maybe you work in Truckee, you live in Reno. All of those community planning processes is so vital to then also executing evacuation, preparedness, emergency services. It's all connected. And I think where we tend to get a little sideways is that community anxiety, right? When the Royal Fire hit, so many people are thinking, what do I do? Do I have a plan? Do I need to start thinking about what it means for my child, my parents, my neighbors, my dogs. Maybe you have chickens. You have to think of all of those things. And I think part of what is really challenging is that so often we don't have the time to prepare. And I think that that's what's so amazing with our presenters this morning is that the amount of information that we have access to and the amount of planning that has happened regionally is phenomenal. I had also the blessing to serve on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan Committee. And if you haven't taken time to go through that story map, please do. It is very well thought out. And there was experts from this community all participating in what information needed to be displayed on those maps and what information needed to be accessible and what type of access we have to resources, to evacuation, also to all of the different services that Truckee Fire is providing. So, I think sometimes when these catastrophic events hit, when a disaster hits, we feel as though we don't have the resources and we let anxiety take over. And I think if there's one message from today is understanding that this community actually has amazing services, and the community planning that is happening right now, even the advocacy that Mountain Area Preservation is doing, is working really hard to say, have we thought about the mitigation that we need for the growth of 2024, 2030, 2040? If you were a part of the Truckee 2040 general plan, you have a lot more knowledge on what's coming down the pipeline and to see what it means to be involved in community planning and what it means to be prepared, because there's a lot of mitigation planning that's happening. So for Mountain Area Preservation, much of our work has been tuning into those community plans, reviewing the development applications, and advocating for mitigation if necessary. So a lot of the technology that James shared is actually a lot of what has been driven by advocacy. So much of our work has not only created case law to say you can't approve this project without doing the analysis for wildfire and evacuation, but also what are the true mitigation measures in place to provide future development, whether it be market rate, workforce housing, or commercial. So I know I'm running out of time and I always have more to say, but the one thing I would leave with people, if you aren't familiar with Mountain Area Preservation, is that we are a grassroots environmental advocacy group. We've been around since 1987. We are a member-based organization, and I always say members make MAP happen because we literally could not do our advocacy without member support. So whether that's financial donations or in-kind services, but the biggest thing for us is that we want and we need the community involved in community planning, because all of us in our neighborhoods, wherever you are in your business, in your home, you are a local land use expert, and you can provide really important knowledge to decision makers as well as applicants to develop and grow our community. And so that's really my pitch, is that we have the necessary tools to be prepared in our environment, because we do have to live with fire. It's something that we have to embrace, but we can also be a resilient community by being a part of the community planning process to be experts to mitigate and have a safe environment. So if you're not familiar with Mountain Area Preservation, please go online, find all about us, and thank you, Marissa and all the Chambers team, for inviting us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alexis. Appreciate it. Let's give a big round of applause to all our speakers. Thank you for being here. We're going to open it up for questions for about 5 minutes. Hopefully the speakers will stay around afterwards. So, do we have any questions for the speakers? Colleen.
Hey guys, Eric, question for you. So I was driving through Kings Beach the other day and I noticed an actual red flag teardrop and banner in the roundabout, and I thought that was really smart. So, red flag being all of the, the lineup of all the critical factors and heightened alert. So we, Jackie and I, are responsible for educating 500,000 visitors a year. 58% are lodging guests. So I really like this idea of a visual, like what is a, we have it all on our travel alert site. But would that be consideration? I know the red flag historically is from on the firehouse, you had the red flag out. But could it be more visual and we could really get behind what that is, like super heightened, always vigilant, but really vigilant during that time, like no flames, no gas flames, nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. Here in Truckee, we typically get about 5 to 6 red flag warnings a year. So it's usually not that many. The last 2 years, we had 0. So this was the first one. It was on a Saturday. So typically what we do at the fire district is we have red flag magnets that we put on all of our apparatus. And any of the fire district fire danger warning signs, we put a red flag on. But I think there's an absolute opportunity for us to look at maybe, combined effort with the town, fire district, Measure T, and see what we want to do to get more visual for red flag warnings. I could see some sort of simple base installation and flags and roundabouts in other areas of town being great. We typically change our signboards, so those changeable message sign trailers to notify the red flag warnings, but it is really important, for everyone to know these are issued by the National Weather Service, and it's a combination of basically temperature, wind, and relative humidity recovery being poor. So it's hot, it's windy, we had very low RHs with no RH recovery overnight, and we're in critical fire weather. So if the fire starts, we would expect that fire to respond in a way that could quickly overwhelm locally responding resources and turn into a significant incident that would require a larger response, aerial attack, firefighting, etc. So it is really important for us to be, kind of vigilante and be really hyper aware of these red flag days.
Other questions? Yeah.
I had a curious question for James, just on coordination with all the different agencies. So when the Royal Fire kicked off, we were right in the middle of heavy Interstate 80 traffic congestion. Is there coordination with Caltrans if there was an evacuation event to have them reduce lane closures, move equipment, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned that exercise that we did recently, the wildfire exercise for the EOC. A lot of it was operationally focused too, and our partners from Caltrans were there. And so fortunately, they do have emergency opening plans. Now, it depends on the work they're doing, of course. If they have the roadway or the interstate completely ripped out, they're not going to be able to let vehicles travel through there. But, if we are looking at potential evacuations, they're going to be one of our first phone calls because we know, anybody driving around town knows how badly that can impact our ability to get people out or moving around. So they have procedures that they can open things up pretty quickly, and we'll be in close communication with them if anything happens.
Yeah.
This is a question for Ann. In the event of a disaster, it seems like your 211 phone bank all of a sudden gets clogged with phone calls. How do you staff up?
So we actually kind of look at government can use the disaster services worker. It's a very similar model. So we have, Connecting Point maybe has 55 staff members, and there are staff members that don't work under 211 that are trained to take phone calls. And so we are, again, in constant communication with OES. We get on calls with them, and then we'll relay back to 211. So if the 211 messaging goes out to the community, we've been briefed, and then we can staff up. So we can pull staff from other programs to work the lines.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there too. That's a big part of our standardized emergency management system. Where, first locally, if 211's getting overwhelmed and they need resources, what Ann was talking about, disaster service workers. So all public employees are considered disaster service workers. So if there's a locally proclaimed disaster or a state emergency proclamation, basically the town manager can go and take public employees, take town employees, and put them in emergency work positions. So a lot of times what you see during a major disaster is that need for information. So the establishment of a call center to help bolster a 211. And so it might be using town resources. If we have limited staff, that's when we pick up the phone and call the county who likely on the other side of the hill isn't facing the same disaster we're facing, and they can provide staffing to help bolster a call center. So definitely a big part of our emergency response.
And our call agents are located, I mean, we don't even really have any based in Truckee, so they're generally not affected by the disaster. So they're really good at this.
Anybody else? Okay, let's start with the stump speeches. And Susan Giacobazzi with Love Your Five is going to share an exciting new leadership program in our community. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to stand over here. I'm a communication coach, so I work with people in leadership roles and also all the employees on the entire org chart. And in all of these conversations with leaders who are succeeding and doing well, maybe owning their own business, or used to be an engineer and now are running the place, whatever, that kind of thing, I noticed this very common message, which was people feel like they're lacking the skills or weren't educated on the skills of interpersonal communication. How do I? Sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist, sometimes I feel like I'm a mediator, right? As I'm trying to get employees to get along with each other, as I'm trying to empower them, we're still just trying to get stuff done here too. So I keep hearing the same message, and that's how this Next Level Leadership Program was born. Jessica and I discussed what is needed in this community, which is for upper level management, people who own the business, the CEO, perhaps a government organization, that kind of thing too. People who have moved up the ladder and so on, and now are looking for those skills, primarily communication. So starting in September, this is a program. If you look on your table, there's a QR code, so you can go to the landing page that will tell you a lot more detail. But it starts in September. It's 3 hours each time that we meet. The first 2 months, September and October, it's twice in the month. So beginning of September, September 10th, and then the 24th, October 15th and 29th, and then from then on, it's the second Tuesday of every month through April. So when you sign up, you're signing up for that whole series. I'm super excited about this in person. It's mostly in person. We're doing Zoom for January, February, just to prepare for the weather that prevents us from traveling. But otherwise, we'll be meeting at Town Hall and on a Tuesday, 2 to 5 p.m. So if this is you, perhaps, if you could think of leadership within your organization that could potentially be interested in that kind of a program, please send them my way. There's also, if you go to that landing page, there's a way to make an appointment with me just on Zoom that we can meet for 30 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever works. So you can ask questions, we can see if we're a good match and that kind of thing too. Also next week, we're doing just a small event about employee retention. That's a big deal around here in a mountain town. And so we're going to be spending time talking about that. We'll be at Xander's Bottle Shop. And then you can get a taste of what Next Level Leadership will be like as well. So I will be around afterwards if you have any questions too. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other stump speeches this morning? Yes.
I just wanted to let everybody know I'm Rapa from the Truckee Library, and we have a program. It's totally free where you can bring all of your legal documents, your medical documents, your pets' records and documents, have them scanned for free. I invested in very high quality thumb drives. I will help you organize it into files, get it done, get it in your go bag. There's no excuse. Just call me and we'll make an appointment and get it done. I also ask that you would let any vulnerable neighbors or friends that you know that might be in the situation intimidated by technology. Everything at the library is free. Just tell them about the program and encourage them to just get it.
Thank you.
I'm Jackie Calvert with Visit Truckee Tahoe, and just wanted to let you guys know that while we're in our peak visitation season, we have our Sustainable Truckee Visitors Guide that's available to our visitors. It's really designed to educate visitors how to, enjoy Truckee responsibly. This is available in print at the Welcome Center. It's also freely distributed to our local lodging properties, and it's also available digitally. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm running for the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. And one of the things I wanted to point out today, given the topic here, that a couple of my objectives are really for the district to invest in more fire-safe technology and infrastructure, as well, of course, our critical water structure. And also, I really want the district to partner with the other agencies, many of them in this room, on the wildfire prevention, as we sort of talked about. The utility also does its own, in addition to these other community ones. So if you're interested in more information, it's Barney, and you can go to electbarney.com.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Alex from the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. And given the topic, I do just want to talk about a couple things about wildfire safety power outages. We've talked, thank you James, there are a couple new programs this year. So we've talked a lot in the past about PSOM, and that's when, the weather conditions, it's high risk weather conditions for a fire, and we'll get a little bit of a warning, hopefully like 24 to 48 hours, we would get a warning from NV Energy that there's gonna be a widespread outage. It would be the entire town, because that's our transmission. But new this year, they've started this, they're calling it Emergency De-Energization Program, where if there's a fire within a set amount of miles from their infrastructure, they will shut down power to try to, prevent their infrastructure from contributing to the fire. This is coming off of the heels of a lot of the liability issues that utilities are having when it comes to these fires. That we will not probably get a lot of lead time on. So we're having to change up our communications with the community a little bit, because I think everyone's been accustomed to, okay, if this happens, we'll have time to prepare. We might not now. So that program, NV Energy's program, got finalized about a week or two ago. So we're really going to be kind of changing up our website, changing up that communication to the community to make sure everybody knows that that's a new part of this that we all have to be prepared for. And then additionally, something new that we will have going on is that the PUD has partnered with Rec and Park to, in the event of one of these wildfire safety power outages, to put up an outage center down at the Community Arts Center on Church Street. So we're a utility agency, we're not a public health agency. So in the event of one of these outages, we're really have to be focused on, monitoring and protecting our infrastructure and then getting the power back on. We have to manually inspect the entire system before we de-energize. It's a huge process, so we really need to be dedicated to that. However, we recognize that, we want to do something to be able to help the community in whatever way we can. So we will be putting up what we're going to call an outage center. It's going to be very limited services. It's a place to charge your devices and get informational updates from the PUD. That's about it as of now, and we're going to be working with Rec and Park about what the hours are going to be, how that'll all be deployed. We're going to be working that out in the next week or two, but more information to come on that.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, before we go to the door prize, just a reminder that the next Good Morning Truckee is going to be on August 20th, and it's going to touch on just housing updates, not so much from the workforce development side, but more from the lending side, the real estate side, and we're going to have a housing analyst from the town come, so should be an interesting one. All right, the door prizes. We are going to start with a Big Boy Steam Engine medium only t-shirt. Apparently, if you lived within 100 miles of Truckee this Sunday, you heard some steam whistles. I actually was driving up Highway 20 in the intersection of 80, where the tunnel comes out. It looked like Disneyland up there. People were waiting for that train to come through the tunnel. So, yeah, I guess trains are still a big deal. All right, anyways, Big Boy t-shirt and this giant catalog here with photos of the engine is going to go to Jim Porter. Yeah.
I've never won anything. This is a good one.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, you were on the annual ride of the big boy train in 1840, right? Yeah, rode it into Truckee when they put the first rails down. All right, we've got a water bottle up next, as well as these are going with every door prize. So, Eddie Bauer water bottle, it looks like. Oh my goodness, Ernie Grossman. Phyllis, you're next. We have a sustainable gift card, $15 from Visit Truckee Tahoe. See Ruth to get the card, but we do have this, and that will go to Parisa. Oh boy, this is gonna look real bad if I draw another one from this table. Kathleen, you always win, so. And what's the
Return ticket.
Oh yeah, return ticket to Good Morning Truckee is going to Luis Zabriskie. All right, well, thank you for all coming. We appreciate it joining us this morning. Again, thanks to all our presenters. A big round of applause for making this happen. We're fortunate to have so many agencies, departments, and entities looking out for us here in Truckee. Hopefully the disaster doesn't come, but if it does, we'll be well taken care of. So thank you.